what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. Today I will show you how to make the best earth build in Wolong Fallen Dynasty. This build is all about destruction and survivability. Every time you deflect an attack, you will amplify your weapon damage and also apply damage reduction to the enemy at the same time. This is not only going to increase your DPS, but also your survivability. And that's what makes this build so fun to use. The more aggressive you play, the more perks you get back in return. For our primary weapon, we are using the Quake Griffin Hammer 5-star fully upgraded. Hammers are an excellent weapon choice in Wolong Fallen Dynasty because they allow you to destroy anything in your path. Hammers also have the ability to crush enemy spirit. This makes fatal strikes a lot easier, and it will feel like you have full control over the fight. I'm also using a spell on this build called Venom Snare. Now, Venom Snare releases a curse bolt to the front that will form a poison fog around the enemy it hits. The fog will cause damage over time to enemies touching it. I want to give a special shout out to one of my viewers from my last video that posted this in the comments section. I think this is really great to know. Applying poison makes your other debuffs last longer. The timer of other debuffs won't move until the poison status ailment is depleted. The poison and heaviness status effect accumulation on this build is extremely fast. Your damage is going to skyrocket the more aggressive you play, and the most important thing is you are going to feel unstoppable, making this one of the best earth builds in Wolong Fallen Dynasty. The first thing I want to go over is my character stats. Now, you can see here that I am level 148, I am in New Game Plus, and the main virtues to focus on for this build is the Wood Virtue, the Earth Virtue, and the Metal Virtue. The Wood Virtue affects HP and the amount of spirit lost when attacked, and it also affects spell duration. Having 30 Wood Virtue is a great way to increase your HP, and also you'll gain access to a very powerful defense wizardry spell that we use in one of our spell sets. I currently have 79 Earth Virtue, and this is the main virtue to prioritize on this build, especially if you're still early in the game. The Earth Virtue affects the equipment weight limit and the amount of spirit gained when deflecting an attack, which means you can carry heavy gear and still achieve A-tier agility. Once you reach Metal Virtue 40, you will gain access to the most powerful poison spell in Wolong Fallen Dynasty, Venom Snare. This virtue affects the duration that a high level of spirit can be maintained for, and the spirit consumed by Wizardry Spells. Currently on this build, I have 794 HP, we have 641 melee attack power on our hammer, 633 defense, 121.7% spell duration, which is great. I was able to get my Wizardry Spells spirit consumption rate down to 69.6%, which is awesome. Since the Earth Virtue affects your equipment weight limit, it gets a lot easier to achieve A-tier agility. If you look to the very bottom here, you can see that I have 347 Earth attack power, 93 stone attack power, which increases stone damage and status effect accumulation, plus 11.4% enemy status effect accumulation, and last but not least, plus 23.9% heaviness and poison accumulation on enemies. Heaviness is going to be applied with your stone abilities, and then poison is going to be applied with a Venom Snare. Plus 8.4% negative effect duration on enemies, power gain, and damage reduction upon deflection. This is a really big highlight of this build. It allows you to increase your damage and your survivability at the same time just by deflecting an attack. I can also amplify my damage on enemies upon Wizardry Spells, so every time I cast a spell, it's going to amplify the damage that the enemy takes with melee attacks and even the next spell that you use. Damage reduction upon deflecting a critical blow, and we can also apply slow on an enemy upon deflecting a critical blow. So every time we deflect a critical attack, we are going to reduce the damage that the enemy deals to us, while at the same time slowing down their movement speed. The main weapon that I'm using on this build is the Quake Griffin Hammer 5-star, fully upgraded +9, 641 attack power. This hammer is a great choice for this build because it has A+ Earth Virtue scaling. We have 48 spirit attack, which affects how much spirit the enemy loses when hit with this weapon, and 65.7% deflect difficulty. The best thing about this hammer is the Mountain Buster special effect. This attack allows you to repeatedly slam the ground where you are standing. It also has an additional effect at high spirit, enhances damage, and prevents staggering from incoming attacks except for powerful attacks by enemies. This weapon also has Heaven Reversal. Slam your weapon on the ground behind you, causing a shockwave, then perform a frontal strike. Plus 19 stone attack power, plus 2.8% negative effect duration on enemies, plus 2.8% hammer damage, and 5.7% enemy status effect accumulation. For the helmet, I have the Warlock Mask, 4-star, fully upgraded, plus 9, 82 defense, and if you look below here, we have negative 2.6% Wizardry Spell Spirit Consumption, plus 17 stone attack power, plus 3.1% stone damage, and we also have the ability to amplify our damage even further every time we hit a target with a spell. Next, we have the Curse Star chest piece. Keep in mind, this is part of a full set. You'll get access to even more benefits for your build, but for now, we are using this chest piece. It gives us extra advantages because it allows us to apply a lot of attributes, right? And these attributes are going to help us make the build stronger. Plus 3.2% Wizardry Spell damage, plus 19 stone attack power, plus 8.1% heaviness accumulation. Now, heaviness is a status effect inflicted when stone accumulation reaches a certain point. It also reduces lightning resistance and increases spirit damage received, so essentially this would be great to pair with lightning as well. Plus 8.1% poison accumulation. It also reduces flame resistance, so another good status effect to pair with poison is obviously going to be fire. And lastly, we have plus 2.8% negative effect duration on enemies. Next, we have 5-star Gauntlets of Rushing, fully upgraded, plus 9, 129 defense. You can see in the special effects below here, we get plus 19 stone attack power, plus 7.9% heaviness accumulation on enemies, plus 7.9% poison accumulation on enemies, plus 3.1% damage to enemies with negative effects, and we also get to apply slow on our targets upon successfully deflecting a critical attack. And for the last armor piece, we have the Dreadstar Greaves. These are also part of a full set. The special effects below give us 19 extra stone attack power, plus 3.4% stone damage, plus 7.9% heaviness accumulation on enemies, plus 7.9% poison accumulation on enemies, and plus 2.8% negative effect duration on enemies. For the first accessory here, I have a 5-star official seal, and the reason I have this on my build is because of this special effect below that we spoke about. Applies damage reduction to the user upon a successful deflection, so this one here is going to increase our survivability. Now, if we move over to the next accessory and you look below, you will see we also get power gain upon deflection. Every time we deflect an enemy attack, we increase our damage and we increase our defense. Next, I want to show you guys the wizardry spells that I was using on this build, and I actually have a couple different combinations. The first spell I'm using here is called Enhanced Defense. For a certain period of time, you receive less damage from enemies and will not flinch except from some powerful attacks. The good thing about this spell, it's easily accessible in the early hours of the game. You only need to be Earth level 2, and you only have to reach 3 morale to activate this spell. Obviously, we have Stone Weapon, which allows us to enchant our current melee weapon with stone. Next, our main poison spell, Venom Snare, releases a curse bolt to the front that will form a poison fog around the enemy it hits. The fog will cause damage over time to enemies touching it. And the last one for this set is Lion's Roar. This pairs very nicely with Enhanced Defense because they both stack, giving you tons and tons of survivability. Lion's Roar lets out a shout that generates a shockwave. Enemies hit will be forced to lock onto you. Also decreases damage taken from enemy attacks for a certain period of time. Another great spell set to use here, you can see starting with Imposing Slab, one of the better stone abilities in Wolong Fallen Dynasty, generates rock pillars in front of you that linger temporarily and explode when enemies touch them. This one does a lot of spirit damage to enemies. We have Stone Weapon on this spell set, allowing us to enchant our current melee weapon with stone. This is one of the easy ways to accumulate heaviness on your targets. Now, one really good combination here is Venom Snare and Elemental Plague. Elemental Plague is going to help with heaviness and poison accumulation. Elemental Plague increases the accumulation of all status effects dealt to enemies for a certain period of time, which makes heaviness and poison accumulation a lot faster. If you're looking for maximum survivability, I recommend spell set 3, starting with Enhanced Defense, which allows us to receive less damage from enemies, and we also will not flinch. We can enchant our weapon with Stone Weapon. We have Lion's Roar to attract the enemy's attention and increase our survivability even further. And last but not least, one of the best defensive spells in Wolong Fallen Dynasty, Perfect Restoral. As long as you have Wood Virtue 30 and Morale rank 15, you can access this powerful spell. Grants you and your nearby allies a positive effect that completely negates an enemy attack once. And yes, this counts for enemy critical blows. This is one of the best spells to use for a boss fight, just in case you miss that deflect on that critical attack, which by the way can cost you your life in New Game Plus. This spell is going to help you out. In my personal opinion, the best Divine Beast to use on this Wolong Fallen Dynasty Earth build is Yinglong. When you die while the Divine Beast gauge is full, Yinglong will revive you. Look at this as a second chance. If you miss a deflect on a critical attack in New Game Plus, and you make a small mistake and you die, Yinglong, as long as your Divine Spirit gauge is completely full, will actually revive you and bring you back to the fight. Now that you've seen the stats, weapons, gear, and spells on this build, let me show you how this build performs against bosses in New Game Plus. Thank you all so much for watching the video. If you missed my last video, I did a Raiden-inspired lightning build in Wolong Fallen Dynasty that I highly recommend checking out. I'll put a link at the top of the screen right now. If you enjoyed the video in any way, shape, or form, a thumbs up would be very much appreciated. It really helps the channel grow. If you want to see more Wolong Fallen Dynasty builds coming very soon, I highly recommend subscribing to the channel, and also turn on those bell notifications so you are notified every time I drop a new video.